Hello and welcome to this video. On this video I will be going through what I think are the 10 greatest blues rock albums. I need to tell you the criteria that I've used to come up with these albums, which I will in a minute, but before we get there I just want to explain how this video's happened, because it hasn't happened the normal way that my videos normally happen. I've got a love-hate relationship with blues rock. There was a point in my long forgotten drum career where I was the drummer with a blues guitarist, brilliant blues guitarist called Ian Parker. We were signed to Rough Records. I toured around with Walter Trout, and I toured with Bernard Allison, did a whole bunch of stuff. I also did sessions with Joanne Shaw Taylor, live stuff, and I did some live stuff with A.Z. Lister. I love the Power Trio. I love guitar, bass and drums. I love dirty blues guitar playing. I love the whole thing, but it's all a bit samey. It's the same old, you get a shuffle, you get sort of a fast funky thing, you know, you get slow 6/8 blues, and it's all a little bit predictable. You know, when I put a blues rock album on, I'm like, I love it for 5 minutes and then start to get bored. And I spent so much time on the road at various blues festivals, and it was all a lot of old blokes holding their pints of real ale, you know, tapping their toes to some shuffly, you know, track that sounded like middle of the road rock music in the end. And of course it bear no real relationship to proper blues. And this video is not going to be proper blues. There's going to be no Robert Johnson albums. There's going to be no there's going to be no Blind Lemon Jefferson albums or Lonnie Johnson albums on this list, and there's going to be no Muddy Waters albums, or Freddie King or Albert King, any of the Kings, B.B. King, you know, Albert Collins. They're not going to be on here. They're proper blues guitarists. That's a different thing. And of course they started to work with a much more electrified blues rock sound, you know, when that became a thing in the 1960s. But what the 1960s blues rockers did, right, on both sides of the Atlantic, was to take the expressiveness of the blues but combine it with a sort of psychedelic excitement and sort of freewheeling expression that had come from free jazz. And so you get the invention of the long blues guitar solo. Cream did it with Eric Clapton. Hendrix did it, you think of Machine Gun. And it's not just the blues, it's sort of modal. And that aspect of those two things together, the sort of free extemporizing, you know, long form guitar solo, that is an invention of blues rock. It's an invention that brings about progressive rock and jazz rock fusion. It's a very specific thing. Now, in compiling this list, there's a couple of albums, you know, that we could include, which I think are foundational albums, and I'm not going to have them on this list. They sit above this list, like the sort of overseers of this list. That would be the Beano album by John Mayall, absolute masterpiece. Eric Clapton comes in and, in terms of the UK, invents this sort of blues rock electric distorted sound. Groundbreaking. Over in America there is an album called Super Session, which features Stephen Stills, Al Kooper, and the late great Mike Bloomfield. Again, this is psychedelic, you know, free extemporizing blues rock. Well, it is on side one. Al Kooper, after recording those tracks that take up side one, decided that he wasn't sleeping well, and decided to go home and didn't do side two. That to get Stephen Stills in, and he comes in and does a whole bunch of songs, including a version of a Donovan song. Oh God, I used to play this with Robert Plant, and I forgot the name of it. It's strange. Season of the Witch. I knew I'd get there in the end. And the Stephen Stills stuff is absolutely incredible as well. You know, I'm not often a fan of that sort of Americana that comes out of bands like Buffalo Springfield and all those sort of bands, you know, and Neil Young and all that type of thing. I'm not a big fan of it, but this stuff is brilliant. It did make me think, maybe if I look between the cracks, there'll be stuff I like. I think it's because it is put together with this sort of, we're rock musicians, but we want to play like John Coltrane thing that was happening with the blues at the time. There's a freewheeling excitement and there's a heaviness. There's a lot of weird sort of psychedelic effects. Super Session is a great album. Of course, any of the Cream albums would be on this list and any of the Hendrix albums. So none of that are off. They've really tried to cull it from the 1970s onwards. And what's also interesting is that all of these albums are live albums. I didn't choose to do this, it just happened. I was just going for the best blues rock albums, and I think these are the best blues rock albums, and they're all live albums. It seems to me that if you want a dose of that electric, exciting, dirty, gutsy blues, which has that chance to have a 20-minute blues improvisation. That's what we're really into. We're into, that sort of masturbatory, you know, sort of self-indulgent long-form guitar solo. I love it. Guitarists feedback and doing all their stuff and everyone's getting fried out. Now, when the 1980s come, that sort of goes. When I was playing on the blues circuit, that had turned into something which was a lot more conservative. And nobody ever wanted to do that. There was none of that psychedelia, none of that stuff that comes from basically Hendrix. That people did it, but not like they did it back then. Back in the UK in the 1980s, 1990s, we had a band called the Hamsters. They were almost like a Jimi Hendrix tribute band. But this band got really big at one point and everybody was going to see them. And we were all waiting for him to do Voodoo Child and just go off on one of these psychedelic sort of explorations, you know. So we're in that realm. It's a very specific thing. Now, why did I do this list? I have, as I said, a love-hate relationship with this stuff, but there is an aspect of me where I absolutely love it. So if we take in a guitarist like Stevie Ray Vaughan, I've never mentioned Stevie Ray Vaughan on this channel really at all, but he's one of my absolute top of the list favourite guitarists. He plays with fire, he plays with guts and dirt, and it's all over the place. I don't like neatness. I like stuff that is all over the bloody place. You know, I like all the bends and expression and the funkiness. And Stevie Ray Vaughan was quite crass in a way. He wasn't out there trying to make sort of tasteful blues. He wanted to blow your mind. And he would do a Voodoo Child and he would take you off on an excursion. Now, my Stevie Ray Vaughan albums, I swapped for jazz fusion albums. In fact, Alan Holdsworth albums with a mate who was a guitar player. And he loved Holdsworth, but he really loved Stevie Ray Vaughan. So I swapped which album did I have? And it wasn't Texas Flood, I thought it was, but it was actually something about the weather. Something about the weather, can't remember. You know, but that album I swapped. But I used to love that album. I think it was the one with Voodoo Child on it. So recently I thought, for my own ends, not for the channel, not jazz rock, not prog, none of that, just for my own personal joy, I'm going to get some Stevie Ray Vaughan albums. And I got them, and I absolutely loved them, and I've had them in the car ever since. And I thought, I want more of this. And I went down the rabbit hole. And I started to listen to albums. Some of these albums on here I've never heard before. I've only heard them in the last couple of weeks. So I was going, this is mind-blowing. This album's mine. Why has nobody told me about this album's been like that? And using AI, what album also sounds like this? Some of these albums I've listened to for years, I absolutely love them. Some of these albums I don't know at all. But a list started to emerge, and it just happened to be 10 albums. I looked and thought, these are the albums. It was actually 11, but I'd got the other album. Anyway, this list just happened. I made this list for myself. And then as I was listening to them and I was going through them, I go, this album's amazing. This is a sublime album. And I came up with a ranking of these albums. Now, I know nothing about this really. I don't hang around with blues people. Not anymore anyway. I try my hardest not to. So when it comes to this, I don't know what the order should be. So if I was ranking albums, if I had like prog albums, if I had like Close to the Edge and I had Brain Salad Surgery, say I was trying to rank those two albums, they're both great albums. But straight away I go, well, Close to the Edge is going to go above Brain Salad Surgery. Why? Because everybody thinks that has been the greatest prog album. I haven't got any of this, although I have an inkling that I have got the right album, but I've got it down low. We'll talk about that when we get to it. This is a really interesting list. If you are a fan of blues rock, I'm going to be really interested to see whether I get this right or not. But a whole bunch of albums I've never really thought about, to be honest. And they're all amazing. Every album on this list is absolutely amazing. So shall we start after 10 minutes of waffle? Shall I get into the 10 greatest blues rock albums ever made? 1970 onwards, not counting Jimi Hendrix, Cream and Mike Bloomfield and John Mayall, forgetting them. Right, and the reason I forgot them, because this is an interesting bunch of albums. Really interesting. Right, let's start. At number 10, and the reason why it's low on this list is not because this isn't a great album, it's because it's pushing the limits of what we term blues rock. Blues rock, when you take blues rock and you start to advance it, put virtuosity in there or make it more blues rocky, more this, more that, it very quickly turns into heavy rock and then heavy metal. And then you start to ask, do we have a band like Budgie, for example? Are they a blues rock band? What about Lynyrd Skynyrd? What about Rush? Rush aren't a blues rock band, but there's moments where they are jamming in exactly the same way as Cream used to jam. You can say the same thing for Black Sabbath. So we can't go that far, but I think there's a certain point when you start to push it, you start to get into the realms of heavy rock, heavy metal. There's one album which I think is still firmly in the genre of blues rock, but it's pushing at that heavy rock door a lot. And in that respect, you're probably thinking, oh, that sounds amazing, because that's what we want. There's too much wimpy blues. Robert Cray's great. What a brilliant blues guitarist. He ain't going to get on this list because I'm on about blues rock. The rock's important. So at number 10, I've got an album called Live, Go For What You'll Know. It came out in 1979 and it's by Pat Travers. My God, is this an album. Now, this is sort of virtuoso blues rock. It's veering towards heavy rock, heavy metal. It's also veering towards jazz rock fusion. But it's got 12 bars on it. It's got all the stuff that blues rock does. Pat Travers is an incredible blues guitarist. And I wanted to cover some American blues guitarists because I know my British blues guitarist better, and it would be very easy to get bogged down into Peter Green territory on this. The American blues guitarists I often like more. They have more of a sort of bar band, dirty Texas rock and roll, let's, have some spare ribs and get dirty and, and let's rock out. It's like functional music. I can't put this out on anymore. It's making my head itch so much. This was a bad idea. Why have you got this hat on for, Andy? Well, you have to find out. It's all there if you were. Bloody, it's really spiking my head. Didn't realise it. Bloody Egyptians, this is weird. Anyway, so Pat Travers, brilliant guitarist, straight down the line, American blues guitarist. There are a certain thing. Billy Gibbons is the same, and he's not on this list. He just missed being on this list. I love Billy Gibbons. I like a dirty guitarist like that. The Peter Greens of this world, they're great. That sort of softer, maybe even David Gilmour, that tasteful guitar playing. Not so much of a fan of, I like dirty rock and roll blues guitarist. But the interesting thing with this album is also got Pat Thrall. Now, Pat Thrall's an interesting musician because he veers towards progressive rock on an album called Automatic Man. He sort of came to the fore in this sort of proto jazz rock fusion AOR rock band called Automatic Man. When I mentioned this album, they come out the woodwork, and then after I mentioned the follow-up called Visitor, people love this album. It's in the tradition of the early Journey albums, the early Toto albums. It's out there, it's psychedelic. They were using a lot of effects, and apparently when they got out live, they just couldn't do it live. Not because they couldn't play it, just because the technology wasn't able to do it. It was like Mike Shreve you know, come out of Santana. Santana's responsible for a lot of this stuff, you know. Pat Thrall was a sort of super guitarist that came out very young in Automatic Man, and then he jumped into the Pat Travers band. So Pat Thrall is this twin guitar thing going on. This is a really American thing. Us British, we have the power trio. The Americans like two guitars up front, and then the thing going on between the two. And Pat Thrall is more like Eddie Van Halen, Michael Schenker's. It's that generation coming thing through. And Pat Travers is more your sort of older. But it's just such great playing. It's virtuoso. The vocals are great. On drums, we have the incredible Tommy Aldrich, who is playing a double bass drum kit. And the drumming is just on. The playing on this album is incredible, but it's the drumming. It's perhaps the best drumming on any blues rock album. Tommy Aldrich is off the scale. And in doing all that stuff, he is laying the groundwork for heavy metal drumming. He's the key. I've heard him, you know, on later albums with Ozzy Osbourne, and he sounds like a heavy metal drummer. But when you go back to this stuff, Tommy Aldrich sounds like the join between Billy Cobham and Narada Michael Walden, and you know, your Charlie Benantes and Lars Ulrichs of the 1980s. But he's such a great drummer. I can't tell you how blown away I was by Tommy Aldrich's drumming on this. It's like my favourite lovely meaty drumming. So that's what I got at number 10. It's Pat Travers live, Go For What You Know, right? And the reason it's low down is not because it isn't a brilliant album, because we're stretching the criteria here. At number 9, I've got the complete opposite. I thought, what's your straight down the line blues rock album, does everything you want it to do, not British, American, that aesthetic, same as Pat Travers, but right at the beginning of it, you know, coming out of Mike Bloomfield. What do we have for that? I went searching around and listened to a lot of stuff, and I ended up listening to Johnny Winter. His albums are incredible. Edgar Winter, who is like one of America's great progressive rock musicians, right? He's incredible as well. Johnny Winter, I've listened to him for years. I knew who he was. Started to go through the albums again. I came across it's called Johnny Winter and it's a live album. It also features the twin guitar of Johnny Winter and Rick Derringer. And a lot of the time they're doing this sort of dual guitar solo thing where they're soloing at the same time. All of these albums seem to have straight down the line shuffle, a straight down the line funky rocker, but a lot of them will have the sort of 6/8, we're doing John Coltrane now, let's psychedelic, let's get all modal. There is often one of those on here. I can't remember what the title is on this one, but this is a great album. It's almost like it's just a straight down the line blues rock album. In the UK, you'd be probably going to Chicken Shack for that. Chicken Shack were a band that is like the British version of this straight down the line blues rock album. Stan Webb, their guitarist, still around. This band is actually based from my hometown, Kidderminster, and Stan Webb, you know, he's always often down the local pub. His son Jesse Webb, I haven't seen him for probably 25 years now, but Jesse Webb, I taught drums when he was a young chap. I would love to know what Jesse's doing. So Jesse, if you're watching this, I'll give you a shout out. Oh, I didn't want to put your dad's album on here. I nearly did. Jesse, I nearly did. I think we got some competition here, but your dad's live album, can't remember what it's called. I listened to it, absolutely incredible. So if you're watching this, Jesse, hope you're all well. I have name checked it. I thought if I put it on, people are going, he's only put it on because he's from Kidderminster. I think that was the thought process. So that's what I've got at number 9 is Johnny Winter and live. The Stevie Ray Vaughan live album, which is called, I think it's called Live Alive, right? And I did a little video for this for my patrons and members. If you remember, you could go and watch it, where I thought, what's the best Steve Ray Vaughan album? I want to go and buy a Steve Ray Vaughan album. What's the best one? And in the end, I bought the best of Steve Ray Vaughan. I've got a YouTube talking about records. I go and buy a best of. But most people say it's probably Texas Flood. Didn't he do one with Albert King? I really liked that at the time. But going back with them again, I want him stretching out, and I want them all played at the same time, and I don't want any production. I don't want to hear the dirt. I want to hear it raw. So it's Live Alive. The only thing with Live Alive is I'd say that He does a very long extemporized Voodoo Child, and it's great. But if you check out the one that's from Montreux, and that's been a live album, it's also on video, he's even more out there on that one. So I was a little bit niggled that I didn't feel I got my full, Voodoo Child experience from Steve Ray Vaughan. But Steve Ray Vaughan, his touch on guitar, and his voice as well, but his touch on the guitar is unique. It's so fiery. It's really interesting how a guitarist could come along and take Hendrix and put it so deep into his system, and it comes out in his own way. It's so expressive. Stevie Ray Vaughan really is perhaps the greatest, no, I wouldn't like to say the greatest blues guitarist on this list, but he's up there, isn't he? What an absolute genius. And what he did in the late 80s, early 90s, brought in a whole thing that then you had Robert Craig come out, and then we had... was it Jerry Donahue? No, that was Jerry Donahue as well, but he'd been around for ages. Jeff, the blind one who's played on his lap. Brilliant. I nearly put one of his albums on here. Died quite young. And then you get like the Johnny Langs, and then you get that sort of cheekbone white blues guitar player phenomenon. People I work with like Aisley Lister and Ian Parker came up in that thing, and then it sort of ended up with John Mayer, who is a great player. It's a great player, but he ain't on this list. So that's Steve Ray Vaughan done. Right. As I said, Steve Ray Vaughan is the best guitarist on this list. I looked at the guy that's on the next album and went, well, maybe not. At number 7, I've got the album Livestock by Roy Buchanan. Roy Buchanan is like your esoteric blues rock guitarist. He emerged late 60s, early 70s, started to make a whole bunch of albums. He pioneered what we could call the Telecaster blues sound, which then was geniuses like Danny Gatton then came out. Danny Gatton's not on this list, but we start to go to another world then, and it almost needs its own video. And a few years back, I did do a video where I looked at guitarists that were really out there, people like Lenny Breau and Danny Gatton. And I had video examples. You go and search that. So I have covered that. This is a blues rock album. Roy Buchanan's guitar playing is unbelievable. It's stingy, it's hot, it's messy, but he doesn't mind playing fast. He's all over the place. He brings out all these strange percussive sounds and notes. Roy Buchanan is he's one of those guitarists, you know. Big influence on Jeff Beck. In fact, on Blow by Blow, he name checks Roy Buchanan on the back of the album. I think he dedicates one of the songs to it. And back then, I then had to go and seek out Roy Buchanan. I got a lot of his albums. Never got this one. This is the one you would want, is the live album. Roy Buchanan was quite a troubled guy, hard drinker. He abstained, and then I think he got into a row with his girlfriend. Got very upset, got out, didn't have a great night, got arrested, and then he ended up hanging himself in his cell. And this would have been around the late 80s. This has sort of taken him out of the mix. He should be looked at more. There's a few albums he made with my hero, Narada Michael Walden, that are interesting. You should check those out. Almost like jazz rock fusion albums. But if you want the pure Roy Buchanan, fiery, speedy Telecaster right in your face, sting, you need Livestock, and that's at number 7. At number 6, I think I've got the album that the people who really know about blues rock would probably put at number 1. It is Irish Tour 1974 by Rory Gallagher. Rory Gallagher is a great guitar player, don't get me wrong. He is fiery and all over the place. He's a good singer. He plays with fire and feel, and without doubt, the greatest album he ever did was the Irish Tour album 74, that gets him at his peak before his sort of unhealthy lifestyle got to him. And again, he died at the age of 47, I think from sepsis brought on from, a liver transplant. These guys lived hard and died young. Rory Gallagher is a great guitar player. This album is beautifully recorded, it's warm and it's great. And when I discovered this album, I went, this is the Rory Gallagher album I've been looking for. I do really like it. And I thought, I'm going to have this list, so that will be number 1. It's just, it's like a discovery for me. I was like, this is an amazing album. Rory Gallagher's a little bit, I don't know. All I can say is I think what he does on the guitar, he's not. I love his playing. That's really, it's your job to do this, Andy. You're a music YouTuber that talks about music. Why haven't you put Rory Gallagher at number one? Well, because I don't think he is number one. I think he's down here. For me, he's like really good. It's not mind-blowing. He's really, really good. He's workmanlike. He does the job. He's like a great blues rock guitarist with a great band. The drummer on this album is very interesting. He very, very extemporising. Like takes like Mitch Mitchell's approach and does it even more, and I like that. The other thing I like about this album is there's no organ on it. This guy's playing this weird electric piano, and that just spices it up as well. Rory Gallagher's brilliant on it. It's just, I think it's just my personal taste. Like, I'm not a massive fan of Dave Gilmour. I enjoy his playing, but some people seem to find it absolutely sublime. Whereas Carlos Santana only has to play one note for me, and he's got me. Rory, I should like. He's quite messy, and there's a lot of soul in there. But I think he's got this sort of loud Fender Strat sound. It's like a classic blues sound. It's not actually overdriven. He's just really loud. And I don't know if I find that a little bit jarring. I don't know. So that's why I'm not saying this is bad. Listen, these are the 10 greatest blues rock albums ever made. I've stuck Rory at number 6. The reason I put the albums above him is because I like them more and I think they're better. But this is the best of the best, right? So don't get annoyed, because I know the aficionados. Because one guy I played a few gigs back in the old days was a blues guitar, great blues guitarist called Gwyn Ashton. And he come out of the sort of Rory Gallagher school, and there was a band called Band and Friends at one point, and it was a lot of the guys that played with Rory Gallagher, and Gwyn was from that, and Gwyn was an incredible guitar player, incredible blues guitarist. So I've had a lot of exposure to all of this. It's not my thing. Rory Gallagher's not quite my thing. Whereas the guy that I got at number 5, another great blues guitarist, Paul Kossoff. He is my thing. And when I hear Paul Kossoff play the blues, I think that's the blues. And he can play it brilliantly. But he doesn't sound like anybody else. He's got this thick sort of Gibson distortion thing going on. And the way he bends the notes and the way he does his thing is incredible. I own the Backstreet Crawler album because I love Paul Kossoff. I was going to put Fire and Water on. It was the one studio album I put on here. And I thought, nah, it's free live. It's the live album where they do Mr. Big, you know, they do all these long solos. And this band, in terms of a blues rock band, this is as good as it gets. Paul Rodgers on vocals, best blues rock singer ever, perhaps the best rock singer ever, maybe the best male singer of the 20th century. No one would argue with you. Andy Fraser on bass, sublime, punchy bass playing, beautiful. Simon Kirke on drums. You know, I played in a million blues bands. Yeah, you could go down the Mitchell route, or you could go down the Kirke route of just playing with space and leaving the space for the expression to come in. Free Live is one of the greatest albums ever made. Got it at number 5. So what's better than that? Now this blew me away. These albums all these albums here, I haven't really heard until now, and they've blown me away. I'm going to have to get them all. Right, at number 4, I've got 10 Years After, and it's called Recorded Live 1973. I've heard the odd Alvin Lee album. I saw him at Woodstock when I was a kid. I was very impressed with his very super fast guitar playing. But what I wasn't ready for is the beauty of this album. This is beautifully recorded. It's warm. It's just 10 Years After. This is the best of British blues, which has a softer sound, which it's not as rootsy and dirty, but this is hot, and Alvin Lee just plays. It's incredible. I don't know what I can say about this. I've only just started listening to it. I wish I'd lived with it more, and I could go on more eloquently about what's going on this album. I can't. I need to give it more time, but the fact is I think I've listened to it. I've listened to it all the way through once and then gone back to it a couple of times. it blew me away so much. And I was sat here thinking, well, is this better than Free Live? Is this better than Rory Gallagher? Well, to me, it is. It's just incredible blues rock. And I that's all I can say. Hopefully there's some 10 years after fans who will chime with me and go, yeah, this is incredible. What's better than that at number 3? Well, a guy that I have been listening to since day one. I tell a story about going out in a rubber dinghy and going out on this estuary and nearly dying. A helicopter coming out, shouting down to me and my brother who's rowing across, and we punctured the dinghy and it's going down on this estuary and he had to sort of try and get to the coast. We come out looking like drowned rats and my dad treats me to a record, and this guy was selling second-hand records at the back of his van on the quayside. This was quite a rare thing to happen in the 1980s, early 80s. And I didn't know whether to buy Ummagumma or Jeff Beck. Well, a couple of days later, we went back there again, and I'd put my pocket money, and I bought another album. This is when I was very young, probably 12 or 13. It was called Long Misty Days by Robin Trower. Robin Trower had been the guitarist with Procol Harum. He'd then gone on to form his own group, and he was exploring the sort of psychedelic end of blues rock that Hendrix had done, not the studio experimentation, just the psychedelic blues rock aspect. He used to play solos with this weird phaser sound, and I absolutely loved it. Now, he put a power trio together, which featured Bill Lorden on drums. Bill Lorden had spent some time in Sly and the Family Stone, very funky American drummer. And then the incredible James Dewar. Now, James Dewar is a Scottish singer, bass player. He's one of the greatest voices in rock music. When I did my 10 greatest sort of rock singers, he was in there. This band was incredible. And whilst everyone's going on about how incredible Deep Purple were and Led Zeppelin were live, and they're going on about all that, they forget about the Robin Trower band, which is about as good as it gets. Of course, the famous album is called Bridge of Sighs. But between Bridge of Sighs and Long Misty Days, they produced this album, Robin Trower Live, and it just captures it. And it's a little bit more rooted in blues rock, because I have to be honest, the studio albums by Robin Trower are a little bit more psychedelic. This is more blues rock. It's heavier and it's chunkier. Again, it's absolutely beautifully recorded. You really feel, you put the headphones on, you feel like you're sat in the front row listening to it. So that's what I got at number 3. So at number 2, another album that I discovered last night. And I was sat there listening to it, going, I've never listened to this band, but this is bloody unbelievable. This is the best blues rock album I've ever heard in my life. Where am I going to have to put it? Now, when I tell you what's at number 1, you'll see what I've got at number 1. This doesn't make the number 1 spot, but it's pretty close. I've got at number 2 a band I've never mentioned. I've only heard like last night for the first time, because I am musically illiterate when it comes to certain bands. This band has been a name for me for the last 40 odd years, just a name. I've read their biography. I know who's in the band. I know stuff about them. I never listened to them. And I'll tell you why I think I haven't listened to them. It's Humble Pie, and the album is called Performance, Rockin' the Fillmore. This comes from 1971. So what have we got here? Steve Marriott, again, one of the greatest rock vocalists of all time. He's in the Small Faces. I love the Small Faces. You know, I can't get enough of them, you know. Absolutely love the Small Faces. Quirky, British, sort of a bit more soul-y, bluesy Kinks, basically. When they finish around about 1970, Kenny Jones and they all go off and form the Faces. I'm not so keen on the Faces, straight down the line rock and roll, but I know some people love them. I love Rod Stewart's voice. Yeah, I probably should go and explore the Faces now. What am I missing out on? I don't know. Kenny Jones then joins The Who. Doesn't do a great job there. There's that, I know that. What does Steve Marriott do? He forms this band called Humble Pie. Never bothered to listen to him, even though I love Steve Marriott. Now, Steve Marriott on guitar has Peter Frampton. Now, Peter Frampton, when I was a kid, I had the Guinness Book of Records, and it had the biggest selling album of all time. Before Thriller, the biggest selling album in history had been Frampton Comes Alive. So I checked that album out. It was a good album, nice playing, nice blues rock playing, very tasteful, great. Old Rick Beato, of course, he loves Peter Frampton. He's had it on the channel. He loves Frampton Comes Alive. But on this album, Peter Frampton and Steve Marriott. Now, Steve Marriott plays guitar as well. This is big, crunchy, unbelievable blues rock. This is as good as it gets. The band I got number 1 is Sublime. It's another level. But Humble Pie performance rock at the Fillmore. This is the best blues rock album, straight down the line blues rock album. Now, if you notice, if you look at this, what's ascending here when you actually look at it is the singers. They're all great singers, but then we get Paul Rodgers, we get Alvin Lee, great singer. We get James Stewart. Now we've got Steve Marriott. I think for me to really love blues rock, I need a great singer up front as well. This is really exciting. It's exploratory. It feels like a live album. It feels like they don't care that the recording's light on. They're not making this album for us. They're making this album for the audience. They're there to blow people away. What have I missed out on? Bloody Humble Pie. What have I got to check out? Mott the Hoople. What else is going to be out there? Bachman Turner Overdrive. All these bands I never bothered to listen to that much. Have I got to go back and explore all this? This is a bloody amazing album. But what have I got at number 1? Well, I've heard this album. This is an album that I've come to recently. Okay? I don't know what's happened to me. I've listened to it before and I thought it was really, really good. But if you go back a few years ago and you look up my 10 greatest live albums of all time, it doesn't even feature in the list. And when it didn't feature, everyone was saying, how can you not have this album? This is the greatest live album. And it could well be the greatest live album. So, in my exploration of blues rock, when I got my Stevie Ray Vaughan album, this is the first album I went to, I thought, let's go and check that album again out. Give it some time. Now, I think what I did this time is rather than put the album on from the front, which I've done every other time, I went to the big track on it, and I don't know why I didn't do this. So, the album is the Allman Brothers, Live at the Fillmore. What a bloody album, right? Now, there's 2 tracks on here that I've never heard before. So I've heard the album, I've gone back to it. But Whipping Post, I can't believe this because Frank Zappa loved Whipping Post. Frank Zappa loved Whipping Post so much that he did a version of Whipping Post on the album Them or Us, right? And Bobby Martin sings amazing on it, and it's like got bits of 11 in it, right? Yeah, and I think I gave it a cursory listen at some point in my past. So what I did is I put it on, I listened to the beginning, go, yeah, that sounds like Whipping Post, not like the one I'm used to, but it's great. I didn't bother to sit there for the full 25 minutes, did I? And what happens, it goes into an extemporization of the highest order. This is blues rock, but what I've learnt is Duane Allman is one of the greatest guitarists that's ever lived. And he's got a touch on the guitar like nobody else. You know, and I bloody hate the album Layla. It's a boring, horrible Americana album. I love the track Layla. Don't like the album. But Duane Allman is different. But his brother Greg Allman, he's also an incredible guitar player. And the 2 of them together is sublime. But the thing that makes this album absolutely incredible is the 2 drummers. This is like bloody... It's as much John Coltrane as it is blues rock. And they stretch out and they get into us. You know what everyone says about the Grateful Dead, and I don't hear it. On bloody Whipping Post, this is as good as it gets. This is why I love music, right? I'm listening to Whipping Post. This happens very rarely, but it happened. Because I don't own a copy of it. So I'm in there, I'm about 10 minutes in, and I'm like lying in bed, I got the headphones on, I go, this is bloody amazing, this is bloody... And it's almost like I'm not even aware of it. I'm over there and I'm buying a copy of it. I'm buying a copy of it like that. I've got to have this. It doesn't matter, I don't listen to it. It's one of the greatest albums ever made. Live at the Fillmore East. This is, you're looking at a man who's discovered something. Maybe I think that's what's happened is, in doing this channel and exploring this idea that there's a lot of pretentiousness in rock and roll criticism. There's a lot of pretentiousness in jazz. We could, I could go and listen to all these free jazz albums, and I've waxed lyrical about whether it's free jazz or Ascension or Meditations or Albert Island or Archie Shepp, all these albums. Or I could go and stick on Hot Rats and be blown away by what Frank Zappa's doing on that. But the truth is once you decide to not be a snob and not judge it on the bloody harmonic language, judge it on the soul and feel, sometimes these blues rockers can get to the same place. We all know Hendrix did it on bloody Machine Gun, right? And that has an honorary place up in the Furbo. It's not even on this list. But I have a new love. This could easily get in. You know my never-ending list of the greatest albums ever made. You know, I've got that list. I keep coming back to it, and I'll add another one in. And I was toying with Fire and Water. I thought Fire and Water needs to go in the 10 greatest albums ever made. So when I come back to it next year, I'd add it to that, and I was going to. That might have just been usurped by the Allman Brothers live at Fillmore East. It's incredible. I have to say those two drummers again, bloody hell, and the way they're interacting and the lightness of it and how they never step on each other's toes. The band is so tasteful. So I've become a bit of a blues rock guitar fan again. I'm back in that zone, loving it. And so I wanted to champion it on this video. I hope I have. I think at some point I need to do it. I need to bring the guys back in. I need to have some blues rock, fiery, with me directing it. I need to go to some of the mates I know who can play like this. I need to go back to Ian Parker, who was one of the best blues rock guitarists in the UK at one point. Now what is he? He's a headmaster, Ian Parker. You're probably watching this. You'll probably be watching my channel. Goes, Andy loves his Eric Clapton now. You can't have a bad word. Now he's done this thing about blues rock, and he's been talking about all these different players. He's championing the Vaughan. Ian Parker sat there, now bloody headmaster of some school. Ian, if you're watching it, you sort yourself out. You get down here. I want you down here, and we're going to be playing. And we're not going to be playing that moody blues. We're not going to be tasteful. I want you down here being fiery. Or anybody, I need a blues guitarist in here. I need to play. I need to play the drums like a bloody jazz rock fusion drummer. I'll get Dave Jenkins, the vinyl vulture on bass. He's into his Jack Bruce. I need a blues guitarist to come out down here and do it. You all want to watch. You all sat there going, oh God, Andy, that's what we want to see. Oh, I could do it on guitar. Maybe I get a drummer in. Maybe I try and do it. Maybe I have two drummers. Do it like bloody live at the Fillmore East. Anyway, we change. Keep your mind open. Listen to new things. Don't listen to new music. Don't go there. You won't find anything good there. But go and listen to all these bloody... There's so many what other old bands... You know, am I going to have to go and check out Budgie? Because that's another band I missed out on. There's a whole bunch of bands I missed out on, really. This is interesting, isn't it? I mean, who do I not talk about that I need to go and check out? Go and put it in the comments. You know what I like. And they go, I didn't realise you like blues rock so much. As long as it's exploratory and spicy, then I like it. With a nice warm sound and a good singer up front. Being soulful. You know, who else might I like? Who else might I like? Have I missed out something here? Put it in the comments. I'm trying my best. It's an ongoing thing, but at the moment, 2026, there it is on my phone. That's what I'm working from. That is my 10 favourite blues rock albums of all time. All live albums, but that's the way it is. Thank you for watching the video. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.